what I'm about to share changed everything I thought I knew about prayer and reality itself. It started as an ordinary Thursday morning. I was driving to work at the hospital where I served as a respiratory therapist, my travel mug of coffee sitting in the cup holder, and my mind preoccupied with the day ahead. The autumn sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, casting long shadows across the road. I remember thinking about my patients, especially little Tommy in the pediatric ward who had been struggling with severe asthma. I never saw the truck coming. Later, I learned that the driver had fallen asleep at the wheel after working a double shift. His semi-trailer crossed the median and hit my car head-on. The impact was devastating, and according to the emergency responders who arrived at the scene, they initially thought there was no way anyone could have survived the crash. Clinically, I was dead for 7 minutes and 42 seconds. But those 7 minutes and 42 seconds contained an eternity of understanding that would forever change my perspective on prayer, faith, and the very nature of reality itself. The moment of impact wasn't painful, at least not in the way you might expect. There was a flash of blinding light, a sensation of being pulled upward, and then peace. The most profound peace I've ever experienced. It was as if every worry, every fear, every burden I'd ever carried simply dissolved. I found myself in what I can only describe as a space between spaces. It wasn't heaven in the traditional sense of clouds and golden gates, but rather a dimension of pure consciousness, where everything was simultaneously clear and transcendent. The best way I can explain it is to imagine being inside a living tapestry of light, where each thread represented a different prayer being offered somewhere in the world. And that's when I saw them. The prayers. They weren't just words or thoughts. They were actual streams of energy, visible and tangible. Each prayer appeared as a unique combination of light and color, pulsing with its own rhythm and intensity. Some were bright and focused, like laser beams cutting through the fabric of reality. Others were softer, more diffuse, like gentle waves rippling outward. A presence appeared beside me, not exactly an angel in the traditional sense, but a being of pure light who identified himself as Gabriel. His voice didn't come through my ears but resonated directly within my consciousness. "You've been chosen to witness this," he said, "because your understanding needs to grow, and through you, others will learn." Gabriel guided me closer to what appeared to be a vast cosmic control room. Here, I could see how prayers actually interfaced with physical reality. It was like watching a divine switchboard, where spiritual energy was being converted into tangible effects in the material world. "Watch carefully," Gabriel instructed, directing my attention to a particular stream of light, a prayer being offered by a mother in Brazil for her sick child. I witnessed something extraordinary. The prayer energy didn't just disappear into the ether. It actually transformed into a series of events and coincidences in the physical world. I saw how it influenced the thoughts of a doctor who suddenly remembered a similar case from years ago, leading to a crucial diagnosis. I saw how it strengthened the child's immune system at a cellular level. I saw how it created a chain reaction of help and support from the community. Prayer, Gabriel explained, is not just asking for things. It's participating in the fundamental creative force of the universe. When humans pray, they're not merely sending requests to heaven, they're actively engaging with the quantum fabric of reality. He showed me how different types of prayers created different effects. Prayers of gratitude generated what looked like golden ripples that enhanced the positive aspects of whatever they touched. Prayers for healing created intricate patterns of green and blue energy that directly influenced cellular regeneration. Prayers for guidance manifested as purple streams that created pathways of clarity in people's consciousness. But what struck me most was seeing how collective prayer worked. When multiple people prayed for the same thing, their prayer energies would intertwine and amplify each other, creating powerful resonance patterns that could literally move mountains. not in a literal physical sense, but in terms of shifting circumstances and possibilities. Look here. Gabriel directed my attention to a particular node of activity. I saw a group of people praying for peace in a conflict-torn region. Their combined prayers created a massive network of golden white light that began to influence the thoughts and emotions of people in that area. I watched in amazement as their prayers literally altered brain chemistry, reducing aggression and increasing empathy in key decision-makers. This is why Jesus said, "Where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them," Gabriel explained. The power of collective prayer creates a resonance that opens channels for divine intervention in ways that individual prayers sometimes cannot. But then Gabriel showed me something that broke my heart: the prayers that were weak or ineffective. These appeared as dim, scattered lights that barely penetrated the spiritual atmosphere. "Why are some prayers so weak?" I asked. "Watch and understand," Gabriel replied, showing me closer views of different people praying. I saw that the weakest prayers came from several sources. Prayers offered without real faith or conviction, prayers that were just empty repetitions of words, and prayers that were entirely self-focused, without consideration for God's will or the greater good. In contrast, the most powerful prayers shared certain characteristics. They were offered with complete faith, aligned with God's will, and came from a place of genuine love and concern for others. These prayers shot through the spiritual atmosphere like arrows of light, creating powerful ripples of change in the fabric of reality. Gabriel then showed me something that left me in awe, a kind of spiritual DNA structure made of light, which he explained was the pattern of all possible answers to any given prayer. Prayer doesn't change God's mind, he explained, but it does change what's possible within the framework of free will and divine law. When humans pray, they're not convincing God to act differently. They're participating in the process of creation itself. I watched as prayers actually altered these light structures, opening new possibilities and closing others. It was like watching a cosmic chess game where each prayer moved pieces in ways that affected countless other moves. Then Gabriel showed me something that made me gasp: my own previous prayers. I saw how many times I had prayed without really believing, how often my prayers had been shallow or self-centered. But I also saw the times when my prayers had been pure and powerful, and how they had created real change in the world, even though I hadn't realized it at the time. "Now," Gabriel said, "let me show you how prayer works in crisis situations." He directed my attention to what looked like a spiritual emergency room. Here I saw how prayers during crisis situations were handled with particular urgency. I watched as prayers for people in accidents, health crises, and other emergency situations were processed and answered in real time. "This is where you are right now," Gabriel said, showing me my own body in the physical world, surrounded by medical personnel working desperately to save my life. I could see the prayers of my family, friends, and even strangers creating a protective field of energy around me. "Your time here is limited," Gabriel said, "but there's one more thing you need to see." He showed me what he called the prayer repository, a vast library of sorts where every prayer ever offered was stored. But it wasn't just storage. It was a living database that continued to affect reality. I saw prayers from centuries ago still creating ripples of effect in the present day. "Prayer," Gabriel explained, "exists outside of time as you know it. The prayers of those long dead can still influence the present, and the prayers offered today can reach backward and forward in time to create change." As if to demonstrate this, he showed me how the prayers of my great-grandmother, who had died before I was born, had created protective pathways in my life that I had never recognized. I saw how my own future prayers would influence events that were already in motion. "But why show me all this?" I asked. "Because you will be a witness," Gabriel replied. "You will help others understand the true nature and power of prayer. In an age where many have lost faith in prayer's effectiveness, you will testify to its reality as a force that literally shapes the universe. Then Gabriel showed me one final vision, a view of Earth from a spiritual perspective. I saw how every sincere prayer created lines of light that formed a beautiful, intricate web around the planet. This web, I realized, was literally holding things together, preventing chaos and destruction in ways I had never imagined. Remember, Gabriel said, prayer is not just communication with God. It is participation in the ongoing act of creation. Every sincere prayer adds to this web of light that protects and sustains your world. As my consciousness began to pull back toward my physical body, Gabriel gave me a final message. Tell them that their prayers matter more than they know. Tell them that prayer is not just asking for help. It is joining in the work of creation itself. Tell them that when they pray, they are not shouting into an empty void, but participating in the fundamental creative force of the universe. The return to my body was jarring. I gasped awake in the emergency room, much to the shock of the medical team who had been about to call my time of death. The monitors showed my vital signs stabilizing in ways they couldn't explain. In the days and weeks that followed, as I recovered from my physical injuries, I began to see prayer differently. I could still sense, albeit more dimly than during my experience, the web of prayer energy around me. I could feel how my own prayers connected with others, and I began to understand how to pray more effectively. I learned that the most powerful prayers came from a place of alignment with God's will, not just personal desire. I discovered that prayers offered with gratitude and love were far more powerful than prayers born of fear or desperation. And I began to understand that prayer was not about changing God's mind, but about participating in the divine work of creation. My experience changed how I prayed for my patients. Instead of quick routine prayers, I began to visualize the healing energy I had seen in the spiritual realm. I started teaching others about what I had learned, showing them how to pray with greater purpose and effectiveness. The most profound change, however, was in my understanding of collective prayer. I began organizing prayer groups, teaching others what I had learned about how prayers can combine and amplify each other. We saw remarkable results, healings, reconciliations, and positive changes that couldn't be explained by conventional means. Some people, of course, were skeptical of my experience. That's understandable. I would have been skeptical too, before it happened to me. But I know what I saw, and more importantly, I know how it changed not just my beliefs, but the tangible results of my prayers. Today, 5 months after my near-death experience, I continue to share what I learned about the true nature of prayer. I teach others that prayer is not just a religious ritual or a way to cope with difficulty. It is a real force that shapes reality in ways we are only beginning to understand. I've learned that every prayer matters, that even the smallest, simplest prayer adds to the web of light that surrounds our world. I've discovered that when we pray with true faith and alignment with God's will, we are not just asking for help. We are participating in the very act of creation itself. My experience has taught me that prayer is not just about asking God for things. It's about joining in God's ongoing work in the world. It's about becoming conscious participants in the creative force that sustains and transforms reality itself. When I pray now, I don't just speak words. I visualize the streams of light I saw in that other dimension. I remember how prayers combine and amplify each other, how they create ripples of change that extend far beyond what we can see or imagine. Perhaps most importantly, I've learned that prayer is not just about changing external circumstances. It's about allowing ourselves to be changed, to be aligned more perfectly with God's will and purpose. It's about becoming more conscious participants in the divine work of creation and transformation. My near-death experience showed me that prayer is far more real and powerful than most of us imagine. It's not just a spiritual practice. It's a fundamental force that shapes reality itself. And when we understand this, when we pray with this awareness, we become more effective partners in God's ongoing work of creation and redemption. As I share my story, I hope others will come to understand what I learned in those 7 minutes and 42 seconds. That prayer is not just speaking into the void, but participating in the very fabric of reality itself. That every sincere prayer adds to the web of light that surrounds and protects our world. That when we pray, we are not just asking for change, we are becoming part of the change itself. This is my testimony, my witness to the truth about prayer that I was shown. And I pray that through sharing it, others will come to understand the tremendous power and responsibility we have been given. The power to participate, through prayer, in the ongoing creation and transformation of reality itself. In sharing this experience, I don't claim to have all the answers. There is still much mystery in prayer, much that I don't fully understand. But I know what I saw, and I know how it changed me. And I believe that as more people come to understand the true nature and power of prayer, we will see more of God's kingdom manifested on earth as it is in heaven.